Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you wherever you are. Welcome to the July installment of our Community Roadmap webinar. We are so excited that you're here and that we're here and that we get to continue to share all this great information, all the fun stuff that's going on. We are, just a couple of things for me before I hand it off to Prashant. We are ramping up to ChefConf. If you haven't heard, there's a whole bunch of great content coming. We're going to have live recordings of some of the talks coming out. You'll see notifications in our Slack channel and on our meetups coming out. So if you want to join those, you can ask questions as people are actually recording the session. It gives you a little bit more of that live feel and gets you a first look at the talks that are coming. We also have some new Learn Chef courses. If you are in the Slack, then you noticed last week we added a new bash course. We've also got an extending inspect course coming and a complete rebuild of our introducing DevOps course. So keep an eye out for those. I also have had a whole bunch of fun watching the DevRel team do live streams on Twitch, which we will be expanding to YouTube and some other platforms in the very near future. They're doing a lot of great they're having a lot of great conversations about how best to approach what you're doing and why. So join us, subscribe on Twitch or follow us on YouTube to watch those. We'll also obviously share notifications about that in our Slack. And in case you're just joining, like Raisa said, if you have questions, drop them in the Q&A box. We'll either be answering them along the way or at the end of the presentation, and we'll answer them, like I said. With that, it's off to you, Prashant.
Thanks, Benny, and welcome everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to all of you. Super excited to come and talk to you all. I think we had a roadmap session a couple of months ago, and that was focused on the first half of the year. Me and the product management team is here today to talk about what other things that we are planning to do for the second half of 2021. And we want to keep this interactive, so we will have a bunch of polls coming up, and also like Benny and Raisa said, don't hesitate to ask any questions on Q&A. We will try and answer them as much as possible then and there. If not, we have budgeted for some time towards the end to answer that as well. With that, let me move to the next one. I am hoping that you all can see my screen well. And you can hear me well. If there are any concerns, to flag us that. We are approaching the year of acquisition, and things are going as planned, and we have made very good progress. We met last time with you all, we had published a first half roadmap, and we have closed the first half, that is first 2 quarters. Within Progress Chef of 2021, and we have completed planning for the second half, along with our community, customers, users, our field-facing teams, and many other stakeholders. And we have also continued to get a lot of support from the community, and having some meaningful conversations with many of you all. So thanks for the contribution and continued support to us. We look forward to this engagement, and we want to see Chef and Progress grow together, and making the kind of impact that we were doing in the past as well. I also wanted to use this opportunity to bring attention to a couple of new joinees who have joined the product team from the last time we met. We have Mark Cavins, who has joined, and he is going to take a lead on the SaaS initiative that we have started. We will talk a little bit about it as we go ahead, but we are working on making some of our product offerings available on a SaaS platform. So Mark is taking a lead on it. Nishal is having the overall responsibility of that. He has joined. He's going to be talking in a little while. he has the responsibility of desktop as well as SaaS. He's going to talk us through some of the things that we are doing on the desktop side. We also have Chaitra, who has joined us last month. She is now taking care of Chef desktop product. We have done a lot of research. We talked to about 60 or 70 users, potential customers, users of other desktop products. So we have got a lot of insights. We are looking for some insights from you all as well. So we will touch upon what we learned in that research today, and also what are the things that we are working on desktop. In addition to that, we have Tim. I think Tim is not you all know Tim. He has moved into product management function post acquisition. He leads our infra. He's going to talk about the roadmap, what we have accomplished in the last year, and also some aspects of the infrastructure. And we also have Sharan in the call. He's going to talk us through what we have planned in Automate and the compliance inspect side of our product portfolio. With that, I want to hand over to Tim, but before that, I want to call out that at any point, don't hesitate to stop us asking any questions that you might have. Our intent is to build, get feedback and hear from you all on what are the things that you would like to see in the roadmap, and the things that we are presenting, are they resonating with your needs, the problems that you are trying to solve within your organizations, or wherever you're using Chef Toolkit. So if you don't see something that you are expecting in 2022 or 2021, or if you are looking forward to seeing something either this year or next year, don't hesitate to pause and ask us, or send us a note on what you would like to see more, or what you didn't expect but seeing it now. Right. With that, I'll hand it over to Tim. Tim, you're on mute.
Apparently, I'm still muted. Hey, everybody. Like Prashant said, I'm Tim Smith. I'm the product manager for Chef Infra and Chef Client. Apparently, my webcam wants me to be fuzzy as well now, but I'm going to share my screen off, and we can talk a little bit about some of the stuff that we've delivered. This here is a very exhaustive list of some of the new functionality we've delivered in just about the last year. Unfortunately, it's already out of date. We had a release of Infra Client last week, one last night. We also had a release of Infra Server last week and one last night. So there's a whole bunch of new stuff that's been on here. We've got a bunch of releases, rapid firing releases with new functionality. But this is some of the great stuff we've done. It's kind of broken down into buckets, so it's a little bit easier to understand. I'm not going to go over all of it, but there's certainly some parts here that are worth chatting about and worth kind of calling out in some of those things we've done the last year. A big one for us is time to value and usability of the product, right? It's a really tough space to tackle. We want to make it as easy as we possibly can. So we're working across the whole portfolio to make sure that each of the components are a little bit easier to set up, a little bit easier to get into, a little bit easier to use. A big part of that is making sure we have certified content. We've released a ton of new CS and STIG content on the compliance side. We've brought also kind of related to that a bunch of new resources into the product itself, into Infra Client. That just makes it that much easier to get started, right? You don't have to write content. Somebody did it for you. That's one of the great benefits you get, particularly on the commercial side with all this, the CIS and STIG content. We've got a bunch of great performance improvements, particularly if you're on the Windows side. Tons of performance improvements coming there. Hopefully, in the next few weeks, you'll see a workstation release as well. That's the first part of this Chef CLI going into Go. That's going to make stuff very, very snappy. It's actually 100 times faster to run things like all the help and some of the listing of the commands. Very, very fast, particularly on Windows. Really great stuff. We've got Chef Infra Views coming into Automate. That is something, if you have the automatic updates on in Automate, you're seeing new releases of that coming just about every week or two. Tons of new functionality there. This next week, you're going to get a bunch of additional policy files details, things like seeing the attributes in your policy files, seeing the run list in the policy files. We added just recently a bunch of abilities to add and delete run lists there, also editing roles, things like that. This is a lot of that functionality that traditionally you saw in Chef Manage, bringing it directly into Automate, giving a really great experience there. But as part of bringing it into Automate, we're making it even better. We're getting all the policy files functionality that was never in Manage, which is really cool to see. In terms of enterprise IT requirements, we got a consistent deployment experience there, which is making it so we can kind of deploy all the applications together. You know, Workstation has everything. Workstation has Habitat in it now. On the Automate side, you can bring Chef Infra Server into that as well. We're working on bringing Supermarket in as well. So you can basically have your Workstation install and your Automate install. And that is kind of, you know, the whole install experience you would have there. Really nice, consistent experience, not having to sling around a bunch of different omnibus packages for all of that. Role-based access controls came to Automate. That was a huge one. That gives you the ability to set up projects there, put different users into projects, put different nodes into projects, and really kind of segregate how data in your environment is viewed. Make sure that, you know, different teams that don't necessarily need access to certain maybe confidential nodes, that they can't see them. We did a ton of platform support in Ojai. This brings support for a lot of those new Red Hat clones that are out, things like Alma Linux, Rocky Linux. Added additional support there as well for the cloud platforms, improved our AWS support, improved our Azure support, added Alibaba support. Really overall just made Ojai much more robust at detecting the system that's running on. Part of that improved platform support is also shipping our M1 native packages. And just recently, we actually shipped M1 packages for Apple's upcoming macOS Monterey, which is pretty great. I was really excited about that one. That means we got it out before Apple released. We went from maybe 6 months after Apple released to the week Apple released to now we're a few months ahead, which is really great for us, seeing a lot of improvements in how we package our systems and how our pipelines are built for us to be able to really speed up that process to get new packages to customers. We also expanded FIP support. If anybody is lucky enough to be under FedRAMP, you know the joys of FIP support. We have improved package EL8 packages, improved file digests, and now we have FIP support for PowerPC and Ubuntu. Those are big requests we had from people. So a big expansion in the last about 6 months in how we support FIPs. That is also on Chef 16. The Chef 16 release that just came out had some of those FIPs enhancements as well. On the cloud native SaaS and subscription services, we added new marketplace images. This is something that we haven't done for quite a while. Now you can go right into the marketplaces on those clouds. You can get a copy of Automate. As you put systems into it, it'll bill right into your account. A really great way to get started with Automate. You can just, click and buy, have a system fully brought up, already has Automate in it, licensing is already handled. Really fantastic, particularly for demoing out Automate. Like I said a little bit earlier, we did expand and update our portfolio of premium content. That's something we're going to keep doing. We've got a ton of content there. And we have a new data feed service. This is a really exciting one. We'll talk a little bit later about how we're expanding that, but this is allowing you to get data out of Automate. We don't want to keep your data in there. We don't want to hide it. We know that obviously Chef isn't the only system you have. You have a really complex business, complex problems. This allows you to get that data in from all these systems, your infrastructure changes, your compliance scans that happen, and make sure now you can get them out to services like ServiceNow. You can create some really cool workflows there. For instance, when a system comes out of compliance, you can have a workflow in ServiceNow that makes sure that the team that owns that system automatically gets ticketed, and they're now responsible for going through the remediation process on that. On the security and compliance side of things, we launched Inspect Waivers. We give you the ability to manage that now directly in the Chef Infra Client. There's a resource for that. That's a really great way to make sure that you have this CIS profile that we give you. They're very, very massive. Sometimes there's things that either you don't think apply to your business, or you just don't have the time yet to deal with it. You can create waivers. You can create reasons for the waivers, dates on the waivers. You can manage that all within the client. That's part of our new compliance phase. That was a big launch for Chef Infra Client 17. That really brings together InSpec and the Chef Infra Client into more of a single experience. We're calling that policy as code. It's a big one. You're going to hear a lot from us in probably the coming years about how you can really, manage these compliance needs, these security needs, and also the infrastructure needs with a single tool, with a single pipeline. That's a big one for us. And then we had a lot of expanded coverage there, a lot of expanded resources, tons of new cloud resources. Those are really great. Again, in Automate, you can go do your cloud scans, whether you're on Google, whether you're on Azure, whether you're on AWS. We have a whole bunch of new content there, a bunch lined up, a bunch that's actually, I think, launching in the next few weeks, particularly on the Azure side, that really expands out what you can scan in those clouds. We've been doing a ton of work there. And then the last one here is expanded workloads. Expanded workloads is really new places that we're using the product. We have a desktop and kiosk offering. So if you're trying to manage systems, we've got a ton of remote workers. Obviously, we have people taking laptops home that never had laptops before. This is a great way to do it directly with Chef. Use the teams and the knowledge you already have. You write cookbooks and manage those systems. Really fantastic particularly if you have systems or users that are using multiple kinds of operating systems, Windows, Linux, Mac, manage those all with Chef Desktop. Kiosks is a great one. We have some really big retail users and restaurants that have tons of kind of, like Windows-based point of sale device kiosks. And then we also kind of changed how we talk about our packaging of our product. A little bit of this is certainly marketing and SKUs. A whole lot of this is the capabilities of the products. We're talking more about compliance, app delivery, and infrastructure management. And we're talking about what we call our enterprise automation suite, which is how we combine those all together. You'll see us talk less about Automate as an Automate thing and more about Automate as this shared platform for all those devices. Compliance needs, infrastructure needs, application needs, they're all flowing into Automate. That's kind of the hub of everything for us. And like I said, with the data feed, also the hub to get that data out as well. So this is our last year. It's been a really busy year. We've got a lot of stuff. There's definitely a ton of stuff that didn't even make it on this list because it kind of has to fit onto a slide. But this, hopefully, we'll have an even bigger one, I think, for you next year because we've got a bunch of stuff we've been shipping. This is what that 2021 H2 roadmap priority looks like. This is kind of each part of that product pillar, what those groups are looking at delivering, what their priorities are. On the infrastructure management side on the far left here, the big goal for us, as always, is ease of use enhancements. We want to make that product even easier to use. We're also focusing really heavily in the last year, really, on security, the security of the product, making sure what we deliver to you is as secure as it can be, but also that it has nice integrations with the security tools that you have in your environment. So you're going to see a whole bunch of that, as well as some platform improvements to support additional platforms. That's always an important one for us with users. You want to make sure that you can install this on the latest operating systems. On the compliance side, a big deliverable for us is actively maintaining and delivering new content for you. It sounds like maybe like, oh, that's not that exciting, but it's a huge lift to make sure that we're following the changes that happen with all these clouds. Every day, they're releasing new SDKs with new capabilities, with new API endpoints, keeping up with those, making sure that we can always deliver the latest scanning capabilities for all the new functionality. The AWS dashboard is so big, they had to change the UI because they couldn't fit anything else in there, but we have to support all those. We have to be able to scan all those kinds of resources. So it's a really big one for us. Expanding our platform support there is also really important. That's part of the content. You'll see a ton of work in InSpec. New resources are landing all the time in InSpec to make sure we can continue to deliver all this content. And then giving an SLA on the refresh of that content. That's a really important one. We want you to know when a new CIS release comes out, that we'll have that to you in a certain amount of time so you can kind of have a predictable cadence from us on when that content's going to come. In the desktop product, a lot of that is the same things that come with infrastructure management. Desktop, obviously is infrastructure management for your desktop systems. In addition to the work that we're shipping in infrastructure management, we're also integrating with an MDM solution. This is particularly important if you're a Mac user. A lot of the security work that Apple has done over the last few releases of macOS have really limited the things you can locally manage on the system, made an MDM an absolute requirement. We're going to integrate Automate and Chef Infra Server with an MDM solution so that you can get that full management of your Mac systems, but still all the robust capabilities that come with using Chef. On the application delivery side, sounds a little weird, but I can kind of explain the deliverable there for this year is really prioritizing customer commitments. We have a ton of things that we've told customers we're going to deliver on there in terms of reliability, expansion of some of the service reloads and upgrade capabilities. The team's really focused there on making sure that we get all that stuff out to those customers, deliver the best experience to them. And then on the bottom here, shared platform services. Again, that's Automate. A big deliverable for that team is the infra views, making sure that they have the ability, in Automate for the first time, not just to see data, not just to get that reporting data back from those nodes, but also to change the state of what you want the policy to be on those systems. You're going to continue to see that capability expand week over week. It's going to get a lot better. I'm very excited about that one. We're also delivering a high availability solution there and improving performance across multiple use cases. That's how we collect compliance data. That's how we scale the system out. We can bring in a ton of data, obviously, as you scale Automate, as you bring in and you start talking about, tens of thousands of Chef nodes reporting in, a huge amount of data coming in. So there's a lot of scalability work that's happening there to make it just work even better for people. So with that, I'm going to dive into infrastructure management. This is the basic format we use for all the different slides for each of the pillars. We're going to talk about new capabilities on the left here, and on the right, we're going to dive into specific features. Since we're trying to talk about kind of the product pillars, in this case, infrastructure management. Infrastructure management does land across a few different software projects. The features are more grouped into the software projects. The capabilities are grouped into the actual product itself. On the capability side, ease of use, right? A whole bunch of work going in to make it so the product is even easier to use. And then a bunch of work going into the security side, security improvements to the product, security integrations, and then lastly, expanded platform support. What does that mean specifically in terms of features? For Chef Infra on the Infra Client, we have work underway right now. There's actually an open PR for the first part of this to store the client.pem files in the native system stores. That means you don't have a client.pem on disk. That it was a concerning thing to some users. We do have very restrictive security permissions on those files already, but if you have certain compliance requirements to get those off disk, we're going to bring those into the Windows certificate store and the macOS keychain in future releases. On the infra server side, we're going through a ton of different component upgrades there. Some of these have actually shipped. We just shipped last night, again, a Rails upgrade. So we're on the very latest version of Rails now. We have a Perl upgrade that has an open PR for next month. We have a Postgres upgrade that also has an open PR. And then we have a future planned Elasticsearch upgrade. We want to make sure that everything in the infra server is the very latest version. This is going to unlock a bunch of new capabilities, especially as we bring in like new versions of Postgres and ES. And there's a whole bunch of great performance enhancements there as well. So I think particularly once we get that Postgres release in, we're going to see a real massive increase in the scalability of the server. Postgres 13, which is what we're going to, has some really awesome performance improvements. We're going to expand the platform support. Some of this, again, has already shipped, which is always fun to be able to say, like, check, it's already done. FreeBSD 13, hopefully in the next few months, we have that support shipping. We did ship Solaris 11.4 support. That is the latest version of Solaris that Oracle's supporting. And we shipped the M1 architecture support for the macOS 12. That's macOS Monterey. We're going to have the Intel side of that a little bit later. Feels weird to have the ARM side before the Intel side, but it's actually a lot easier to build those ARM packages now. Speaking of ARM, we're going to publish ARM Docker containers for Chef Infra. This is really handy for testing. You'll be able to run things like Kitchen Dockin on ARM instances in AWS, and some of the other cloud providers have those as well. We're going to ship some integrations with secrets managers. Some of this already has shipped as a beta. Chef Infra Client 17.3 included some of this. That's the AWS Secret Manager and the Azure Key Vault support. We're hoping for next month to have HashiCorp Vault support and a keyless Vault support. That might be one more month after that, but this is going to be our initial beta on the client side. It's a new helper for the Chef Infra language called Secrets. It lets you just fetch secrets right into your code. We're going to expand our MTLS support for Chef Infra Server. The initial support is actually there. This is more about documentation, making sure things like Manage and Supermarket can interact with the Chef server once MTLS is turned on. That's mutual TLS, which just is an added layer of not really authentication, but verification. Right now, the client verifies the server certificate. This will make sure that the server is also verifying the client's full certificate chain. We've done a ton of work on policy files. Some of that has shipped. You saw a little bit of that, I think, in the last few workstation releases. A little bit of that shipped in the Chef Infra Client 17.3 release. This is making policy files even easier for people that are traditionally using Burkshell, making it so they can hop on and migrate over to policy files. We're also working on an upgrade of Supermarket. This is another one of those kind of massive lifts of all the components, getting that on the latest version of Ruby, Rails, Postgres, Redis, Nginx, really bringing everything up to date. We've also got a little bit of nice improvements in there in some of the wording throughout the UI, making it so searching works better, doing things like making sure deprecated cookbooks show up at the bottom of the search results, stuff like that. They'll make it a little bit better. On the Chef Inspect side, we're improving the compliance phase within Chef Infra Client. That's going to make that experience between Inspect and Infra Client even better, making it so that you can just ship Inspect profiles directly in your cookbooks, which is a really great way to iterate on them. You'll be able to go into Test Kitchen, run through that, see the compliance phase run. Oh, I made a mistake. I made a typo. Like, let me just change it. Kind of get that same really tight, quick feedback loop that you have with Infra cookbooks. You'll get that same thing with Inspect profiles through the compliance phase. And then lastly here, ChefAutomate. Like I said before, we are doing a ton of work on the Infra Views functionality. We're shipping new functionality there every week, but we are really expanding that out for policy files and user management in the next quarter. You'll see a ton of new stuff there, and even just next week, we're going to have a whole bunch of new policy files functionality there. So that's a very exciting one to see come about and really, eclipse what we had with Chef Manage previously. It's really great to see that in Automate now. And with that, I'm going to hand it off. Now it's time for Automate.
Tim, you might have to stop sharing.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Tim. So my name is Sharon Riker. I am responsible for the Chef compliance within Chef. And today I'll be speaking about some of the priorities that we have, or some of the roadmap items that we have as part of the second half of the year, both for the shared platform services as well as for compliance. With respect to the shared platform services, which basically encompasses ChefAutomate as well as the hosted Chef, really our vision is to provide a unified platform view for customers to view and manage their policies across the Chef offerings. And as Tim had said multiple times, it's really the whole idea is to make it easier for customers to understand and use the various offerings. In terms of some of the key features that we are planning to introduce within Automate, one of the major features is the introduction of the Infra Server view in Automate, which is basically a kind of an alternative that we have for the Chef Manage functionality, basically enabling users to view and manage some of the Chef server objects in Automate. And in this direction, we released a bunch of functionalities. We provided the capability to edit organizations, roles, and a couple of other aspects. We are now extending this through the introduction of the policy file read-only views. So that would enable better user management to take care of both the existing and new Chef server users. The second key feature that we are introducing within ChefAutomate is the data feed capability. And here we are really looking in two different areas, two different types of integration. One is the webhook integration, and the other is the data storage integration. And with respect to the webhook, we are looking at we are looking at supporting ServiceNow, Splunk, and Kibana. We already GA'd ServiceNow, but our focus would be really to improvise on the scalability aspects based on some of the customer feedback that we received. We are also looking to support Splunk, Kibana, and ELK integration more from the monitoring perspective. And we have we have around 4 to 5 customers who are very keenly looking on this particular aspect. In terms of the storage aspects, we are looking to extend the data feed support to support AWS S3, as well as many of which is a high performance object storage unit. The third key feature that we want to introduce within ChefAutomate is the high availability capability. High availability Automate HA traditionally has been more of a professional services driven offering. And here we are looking to make this more as a part of the product offering, wherein some of the features like failover support, auto scaling, load balancing, and some of the advanced metrics to gauge performance will all now be part of the product roadmap, and it will be pretty much part of the product offering. We also aim to have very detailed documentation, which includes architectural documentation of how users can really deploy Automate HA on various cloud offerings, be it AWS, Google Cloud, or Azure, as well as on the on-prem side of the world, as well as on the air-gapped environment. The fourth offering that we are planning to introduce in ChefAutomate is the configurable web session timeout. This is basically where we want to allow users to have that additional kind of flexibility to set a session timeout. And then this really helps more from a security perspective as well, wherein specific organization policies can be considered, and the web session timeout can be set accordingly. We are also looking at a configurable way to retain data with better guidance on the infrastructure requirements. And one of the other aspects in Automate is we want to upgrade a ton of components, starting from Elasticsearch to PostgreSQL, Ruby, and a number of other components. One way this will help is definitely improvise on reducing vulnerabilities. And it will also help us in taking advantage of some of the new features that the newer versions of the various components would provide. We're also looking at a certain set of customer reported security issues. This is more to really help us improvise on the stability aspect within ChefAutomate. Our marketplace, one of the key ways for us to reach out to our customers. And here we aim to enhance our Azure and AWS marketplace instance. And we are looking to upgrade the images on the marketplaces with the newer Automate version. And that's one of our key focus area for the second half of the year. Finally, with respect to the Chef compliance, here we're looking at optimized data ingestion. And a lot of this is to really improve the scalability and the volume of the compliance data that can be exposed on Automate. So basically, our longer-term view is to really make Automate as a management hub for all the Chef solutions. And we've basically started on this path. So we have started from getting the Automate views completed, wherein users can view Chef server details in Automate across infra compliance and app delivery. And we are then moving on to a higher level of control over the infra server and related resources like organization, cookbooks, roles, and environments. So there's a feasibility to view and edit a bunch of these components, all from Automate. And then finally, we move on to managing the nodes itself from the Automate. So basically, the whole idea is to have Automate as a single portal for all the Chef solutions. With that, I move on to Chef compliance, and basically the Chef compliance is to really, the whole idea is to enable enterprises or organizations to enforce and maintain compliance and security posture. And towards this, some of our roadmap capabilities for the second half of 2021 pretty much covers cloud target scanning, which is one of the key aspects for us. Which is basically the ability to scan AWS, GCP, and Azure from using our cloud resource packs. We are also expanding our content generation process. We are looking to add a bunch of new content. We'll be kind of reviewing that in the future slides on the content roadmap. And we are also publishing an SLA, which is basically, as and when the benchmark providers update their content, we kind of refresh the content on our end, and we publish an SLA on by what time that we want to kind of have our content refreshed. So in terms of the features, we are on the closing stages of having this SLA published in terms of both for audit as well as for the remediate. In terms of what would be the time by when these content will be refreshed from the Chef end. We're also looking at the Automate content generation process, and this is really to eliminate the manual dependencies that we have in generating the content for CIs and stick profiles. We are looking at automating the whole process so that whenever there are newer contents which are released by CIs and stick, we kind of take that up, and there is an automatic process to update our content. We're also expanding on a bunch of content on the CIs and stick, and as I mentioned, we are really kind of expanding on our cloud resource package. We are building extensive support for AWS, GCP, as well as Azure. On the Chef InSpec end, which is one of the backbone for Chef compliance, we're looking to upgrade InSpec from the 2.x support that we have for Ruby to 3.0. This really helps us to take in some of the new capabilities that Ruby provides. The second key feature is to incorporate InSpec style. InSpec style is basically a kind of a format checker, or I would say a code style checker, which adds indentation, and it really helps in kind of formatting the InSpec code. So that's something that we are looking to integrate with our InSpec, so customers can really have a more flexible way of kind of gently testing their InSpec code. We're also adding upgrading our target platform for InSpec. We are adding a bunch of operating system architectures there, something that we want to support so that we can utilize this to add more content on a number of other platforms as well. And finally, on the ChefAutomate end, the compliance data that's generated out of Automate, that can be fed into some of the external systems like ServiceNow for incident management, or Splunk or Kibana for monitoring purposes. So our efforts will be there towards those aspects as well. Also, we want to improvise on the limit on the volume of the compliance data that can be fed into Automate. So there would be a bunch of efforts which will be going into that aspect as well. I also want to draw your attention to some of the poll questions that we have. Please take your time to answer these questions. This will really help us a lot in improving the compliance offering as a whole. With that, I move on to some of the content which was delivered in 2020. So as you can see that we have very clearly divided our content into both audit as well as remediate, and into CIS as well, as the resource packs. And we had a bunch of support ranging across multiple aspects, ranging from database systems to Windows servers, as well as for some of the Linux systems, as well as for some of the the web servers as well. Just want to mention that premium content specifically is available for licensed users. With that, I move on to our content roadmap for 2021. So with respect to our second half of the year, our content roadmap really focuses on introducing audit and remediate content for CIS framework, for Windows Server, some of the Linux versions, Windows Desktop, and database systems. As well as on the audit, on the stick end, we want to introduce the audit and remediate content for Linux and Windows servers, as well as on the Windows desktop systems. Also, we are focusing on the cloud resource packs. So we are introducing a ton of resources on AWS, Azure, and GCP. So yeah, with that, I'll give it away to Nishchal.
Hey, thank you, Sharon. Can someone confirm if you can see my screen?
Yep, we can.
Yes,
Awesome, thank you. Hey, my name is Nishchal Reddy, and I work as a senior product manager at Progress in the Chef product organization. And I'm responsible for Chef Desktop and some of the cloud initiatives. And I'm really glad to speak in front of you today. So before we get into some of the roadmap items for the Chef Desktop product, let me give you a brief history about Chef Desktop, right? So Chef Desktop product was announced early 2020 in ChefConf. I believe it's early 2019. So even before we formally launched Chef Desktop product, we had a lot of people from our community and some of our customers using Chef technology to manage endpoints even before we formally launched the product, right? So I would say this product is kind of born out of customer use case, and it was like innovated by some of our early adopters, and we took that pattern and built a formal product around it to give it to more people to use similar pattern to manage endpoints. And so these are some of the items that we have planned for H2 2021. So the first is MDM integration, like Tim slightly touched upon it. So Apple has made some breaking changes in Big Sur. So they have kind of deprecated a profiles utility through which you can install configuration profiles from your local machine. And hence, so we are planning to integrate with one of the MDM providers to bring back that functionality into Chef. And the next item is to improve getting started experience with Chef Desktop product. So with Chef Desktop, you have to, you can integrate with some of the open source tools like Monkey and Gorilla to do application management. So we are, we have created a bunch of automation scripts that would help you quickly spin up and set up the whole, infrastructure for you. And as part of this, we are also improving the existing documentation and some of the resources in that. And so the next is supporting, new Apple hardware. I think, team has already touched upon this. So we have already released, Mac OS 12, and we'll continue to support new operating systems when they're released. And finally, MTLS support. So I think Tim has again already touched upon this. So MTLS support really helps secure the communication between your endpoints, nodes with your infra server. This is much more important in recent scenarios because of more and more organizations adopting remote work. You now have employees taking their endpoints or laptops to public networks, maybe coffee shops. So it is more so important to have a secure communication between the endpoints and your infra server. So these are some of the things that we are working on in H2. But if you are using any of the Chef technology to manage endpoints, or if you have used it in the past, and if you have any feedback that you want to share with us, I'll be glad to speak with you. So you can just leave a note in the chat and we'll find ways to reach out to you. And so the next, let me just move to the next slide, is Chef app delivery. So some of the work that is currently in flight for Chef app delivery team is we are working on a most commonly requested feature to enable builder users to see notifications when some upstream packages are updated or changed. We're also working on creating audit trail for any internally promoted packages as well. And we are also currently in the process of doing a refresh to the core plans. This will enable customers to get the latest packages from core design. And some of the things that are in our backlog are we are also planning to work to make the getting started patterns for Habitat or app delivery much simpler. And also to make it easier for users to bootstrap services on systems. And we are also currently investigating support for ARM and macOS. But these plans could potentially change depending on what we hear from customers' demand and product fitment. So with that, I will probably hand it over to Prashant.
Thanks, Nishal. We covered most of what of our second half roadmap. We have about 10 minutes left. We could use this 10 minutes to answer any questions that you might have, which we tried and answer some of the questions that came in the Q&A panel. But if any of you have any questions, we could use the remaining 10 minutes to answer them. Okay, it looks like we have a question. Thanks. About the question is about the documentation. What is our plan on making sure that the documentation is up to date, and also outstanding pull request? I'll take a stab at documentation, and Tim probably can take a stab at the pull request. So for documentation, we recognize that some of our documentation are outdated. We have started looking at Automate specifically now, and we are looking at what are the cases where Automate documentation needs to be fixed. Similarly, we will then go product after product and pull it as part of our product backlog to make sure that we fix the debt that we have with respect to the documentation. And then we also are having a couple of other folks join into our documentation team, which will help us increase the capacity. We are obviously we are making a lot of progress, and there is little imbalance, as you have noticed, more on delivering software as compared to fixing some of the auxiliary issues. So it's on our radar. We hope to make that gap narrow as much as possible as we go forward. Tim, do you have any take on the pull requests?
Yeah, I think maybe not as much the pull request, but one of the big goals within the product lines is really to automate some of that documentation. We're certainly hitting target teams across the docs. We had a huge effort on the Habitat side to clean up some of those documentation docs. The one that Prashant was talking about right now, whole bunch of effort in Automate to clean up those docs. We had a new writer that started there specifically for Automate. We also put a bunch of effort into the getting started docs on Workstation to make sure that the installation, the configuration, all those things were fully updated. But we're putting a lot of effort into automating the docs further. We just did a bunch of work on the Infra Client side to make sure that we could generate better resource documentation so that we can get that ideally, hopefully fully automated in the near future, which is why we're actually on that side shipping resource docs slightly before the releases come out, which is again like really fantastic because traditionally we were like maybe 6 months behind. So having it a week ahead is like makes me super happy. Also the work to get the Chef CLI into Go on the workstation side is one of the big side benefits of that, is that gives us the Cobra framework, and from that we can actually generate documentation straight out of the CLI as we code, which is something we've been lacking, particularly the docs around flags. We definitely know that those are not what they should be. As we get that into a framework where we can document it inline and have those docs generated, part of those releases generate the docs, and those docs go straight up onto the website. There is definitely a backlog of PRs, and that is going to be helped as we get more people to review them. Sometimes it looks like, oh, these things are ready. Like I know we've got a big custom resources one. There's still more work on it. So a lot of those take a long time. And also, unfortunately, as we've been ramping up and doing a lot more releases as a product org, every release, all the release notes go through the docs team. So every time I have the server team or the client team doing a release, that actually makes the docs team not get docs work done because they have to go through and rewrite all my terrible typos and stuff. So I think that was pretty long-winded, but hopefully that answers some of that. Do we have anything else?
Benny, do you have any other remarks or announcements while we questions?
I don't.
Okay.
I mean, I have all kinds of snark for Tim, but that's just a constant source. And I'm full of snark. I think we're good.
Looks like the question on the community, why are fewer Progress members active on community? I think most of the time, currently all of us are Chef team members. We don't have Progress or Chef. We have one business unit, Core C, which is exclusively Chef. So if your question is why aren't some of the new product managers or new faces active on Slack, community Slack? If that is the question, yes, maybe we are not as much as we wanted to, but we are now more and more ramped up. We have many more team members who are active on various channels. This is one of the effort that we have taken to make sure that we are actively engaged with the community. So you will see some of us hanging out there more and answering some of the queries. Benny does a very good job of pulling us into that as and when there is a need, but you will see us hanging out more than before. And feel free to tag us or ask us if there are any questions. And we do a lot of user research, especially on new features that are being developed or some of the new product ideas that we are thinking about. We do take input on idea or many of the channels. If you think there is a feature that is being implemented and you have some input on it, feel free to tag us, and we will be happy to have a conversation with you about that.
Yeah, the follow-up is, just about seeing more active people. I'm sure that it is not news to folks that we've had a lot of new people join. Like Prashant showed that slide this time, and I was just blown away. Like, there's so many new faces on there, and it's going to take a little bit of time to educate the new people that have joined about like what the Chef community, especially specifically the external community, expects in terms of communication and how active we are and that kind of stuff. So that's one of the things that we're teaching, not learning, teaching.
Thanks, Benny. And also it's worth noting that the product management coverage is more than what we had before. We are trying to have more dedicated scope for product managers so that we get a little bit more attention, because now we need to talk to users, we need to talk to customers to get feedback for us to make our product better. So that has increased. I'm positive that our engagement will also see an upside shortly.
Great, agreed. Any other questions? Cool.
Thanks, everyone. Hopefully this was useful. We will share the recording and some of the comments. We also have another meeting. Yeah. Sure, we will be more and more active. We intend to meet at least once every 6 weeks as a minimum criteria. One of the person from the product team will be active in these webinars. If there are any more topics, if there is something that surfaces on the community Slack channel, we will be having some dedicated sessions. And also, like Benny said, this is not the only way we intend to engage. We are planning to have a lot of impromptu, informal conversations on Twitch and other streaming platforms. So you will see us hanging around on those platforms also more. So yes, looking forward to more and more interactions. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, folks.
Bye.